I'm very happy to welcome back to our program former Illinois Governor Pat Quinn. Pat, thank you for being here today.
Well, thank you, Joan. Always good to talk to you, and it's a good day.
It is a good day. Pat Quinn has been very, very involved in getting measures or trying to get measures on the ballot that allow folks to weigh in on things like, gee, how should our tax money be spent? Do we want to spend it on a sports arena? What about property taxes? What should we be considering there? You have been very, very busy, Pat Quinn, trying to get, even if they're just non-binding referendums, on the ballot so that the people have a chance to weigh in. Talk about that.
Well, it's pretty important. I think referendum is the voice of the people, Joan, and we've been able to use referendum, both advisory and binding, over the years to get reforms passed in Illinois that are necessary and that the people want. That's how we set up the Citizen Utility Board 40 years ago. We put referendums on the ballot, and people voted for it, and we set up an organization, Illinois' largest consumer group, to take on the big utilities. So this year on the ballot is a referendum. It's called the Illinois Property Tax Relief Amendment. It's a chance for people to vote and send a message to Springfield. Basically, it calls for a 3% surcharge on the income of millionaires in Illinois. Anybody who declares more than $1 million in income in a particular year would pay a 3% surcharge, but that money would be used to give property tax relief to 3 million Illinois homeowners, people who live from paycheck to paycheck. And this is tax reform at its best, in my opinion, and it's a good way to take Illinois' upside-down tax system, where right now the millionaires get all the tax breaks and everyday people get higher property tax bills. So we want to do something about that and get property tax relief for people every year who live from paycheck to paycheck.
So I believe this is a non-binding referendum, correct?
Well, yeah, the legislature in May passed a law and put it on the ballot for November 5th, our election coming up, presidential election. So it'll be the biggest turnout in Illinois in the past 4 years. And they wanted to really get the opinion and ideas of the people of Illinois. So this referendum is called the Property Tax Relief Amendment. It's on the ballot right when you go to vote for president. It's right next to it in Cook County. I just saw the ballot, and it's a good chance for the people to speak out on something that's long overdue, reforming the property tax system and giving relief to people who need it the most. And
if this, say, passes with overwhelming numbers, what do you think will happen in Springfield? What kind of legislation might be drawn up as a result?
Yeah, I think the good thing about this is it's a specific way of identifying the funding necessary to give major property tax relief to every homeowner in our state. A 3% surcharge on millionaire income, according to the Illinois Department of Revenue, would raise about $4.5 billion, which is a lot of money. But unfortunately, right now in Illinois, our property tax system is complicated and really out of control. Our state is second only to New Jersey in high property taxes on everyday people. So we need to get the system back in order and get relief. And the best way to do it is to not cut schools or cut other important investments of government, but to really go to millionaires in our state and tell them they're going to pay a 3% surcharge on their income. This is not unheard of. They just had a referendum like this in Massachusetts in 2022 and voted on their referendum for a millionaire surcharge. It passed, and it's actually raising more money than they expected. So it's really important for Illinois.
And has that money then been used to offset property taxes? How does that work? Do people get a check or a rebate?
Well, in Massachusetts, they didn't propose property tax relief as where the money goes, but rather education and transportation.
Oh, I see.
Their property taxes are nowhere near as high as Illinois'. So I think there's 8 counties in Illinois, including Cook, that are among the top 100 counties in the country at levying property taxes. So our system, the number one issue for tax reform is to cut the property tax burden on everyday people. And I think this is a straightforward way to do that. And actually, the legislature did pass a law about 5 years ago, and it said they were going to set up a property tax relief fund. And every year, the homeowners of our state would get a rebate from this fund. There's about 3 million homeowners. The only problem is they didn't appropriate any money for the property tax relief fund. So basically, our proposed referendum that people are voting on in November 5th is a way to fund really significant property tax relief for everyday people. I've been going to taxpayer meetings, and I was down in Pilsen not too long ago, and, people there got gigantic property tax increases, and they can't afford it. They want to stay in their home. They don't want to move. They've been part of the neighborhood.
Pilsen's getting to be a really gentrified, hot neighborhood to move into, and that usually means that property taxes go up.
Well, that's part of the problem. So we have to give relief to people who want to stay in the neighborhood. They're really the heart and soul of a neighborhood. And, in the south suburbs of Cook County, they got reassessed, and lots of people there receive very large property tax increases that they can't afford. And right now, for all of us I live in Chicago, we're being reassessed by the assessor. That we won't see that tax bill until next summer, but it's going to be big, no doubt about it. And that's why the property tax relief amendment, the referendum, is a key way to send a message to the legislature in Springfield that we can't just talk about it. We got to take charge. We listen to the voters in a referendum and put this constitutional amendment together and make it a reality in Illinois.
You talk about offering this kind of relief to everyday people, but how do you define that?
Well, they did this with the passage of the Property Tax Relief Fund. That law passed, I think, in 2019. They said that every year the Comptroller of Illinois, a state constitutional officer, would determine how many people, how many households in Illinois declare the homestead exemption, meaning you're a homeowner, you get an exemption for it. And so there's a little over 3 million households like that in our state. And under this law, it said every year those households would get a property tax rebate, depending on how much money was put into the fund. But they didn't put any money into the fund when they first started. And so the idea of the referendum that we have on the ballot in November is to pass this millionaire surcharge and use that money, estimated at $4.5 billion, use that money to give a property tax rebate to the homeowners of our state, the 3 million households. So that would come out to even a very generous amount of property tax relief. But we first have to get step one, which is to pass the referendum this November to get the ball rolling.
With the figures you've given, I didn't do the math. Can you ballpark if with this 3%, let's say this 3% thing became law, it was used to fill up this fund that already exists, that has a definition of who qualifies for this kind of money. Do you have any kind of a ballpark of what that would mean for an individual homeowner? Because, I've been involved in rebate programs before, and you get a big check for $5 that shows up at your house.
Yeah, no, it's a little more than $5. Now, obviously, it has to take effect, but if you take the Department of Revenue's figures, this is the State Department of Revenue, and they collect the income tax, and they keep track of the property tax system as well. If you divide $4.5 billion by 3 million households, it comes to about $1,500 a year. and this would be annual. Obviously, we've got to make it happen, but clearly this is a significant way of lowering the property tax burden on people who own homes, want to stay in their home. Home ownership is very important for neighborhoods and for our economy and for everybody. You know, the biggest investment I've made, and I think most everybody, is buying a house. Well, we don't want to be taxed out of our house, and the Illinois property tax system is very complicated. It's unfair. I know firsthand. I was elected. My first office I got elected to was the Board of Property Tax Appeals in Cook County. That was the agency that oversaw the property tax system, and I heard 150,000 assessment appeals in my 4-year term. And you see face-to-face people who are in desperate situations, and the property tax system doesn't really have a heart. It just wants to take more money and make it hard for people to live in their home.
Yeah. I'm talking to former Illinois Governor Pat Quinn. We're talking about a measure that you will be seeing on your ballot. We're going to take a real quick break. We're going to talk more about this right after we come back from this.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive on WCPT 820.
I'm speaking with former Illinois Governor Pat Quinn. There is going to be a non-binding referendum about property tax relief on the ballot this November. There is already a fund that was created by our state legislature for property tax relief, but there is no money in it. And hopefully this measure will raise some money with a 3% tax on people who are making $1 million or more to fund this particular pot of money. You know, Pat, when J.B. Pritzker was first in office, he wanted to pass a graduated income tax in the state of Illinois. And that measure, had it passed, would have made the tax burden lighter on those who are in the lowest earning categories. And then as you made more money, your tax burden would be greater. It was a measure that seemed fair, gave the poorest among us a break, and yet it went down to defeat. And there were a lot of really wealthy people in the state of Illinois who got together and funded a campaign, an ad campaign against the graduated income tax that I believe resulted in a lot of people voting against their own self-interest because of the misinformation. So this is not, it would seem on the surface a measure like this that you're proposing about property tax would be a slam dunk, but we have seen sensible taxation legislation in the past get voted down. So what do you think the odds are of this getting a lot of support? And is there organized opposition?
Well, I went to a hearing last week, Joan, and some of the Republican legislators were not exactly singing the praises of the property tax relief amendment, but I don't think they really thought about this. In their district, there might be a couple of dozen individuals who declare more than $1 million a year in income, but there are thousands of people who are residential property taxpayers. The measure there a few years ago, I think it was a little too complicated, to be honest. And you don't want to win or try to win referendums unless it's straightforward and simple and easy to understand. Mm-hmm. And the question that people are going to vote on this November is, should we have a surcharge of 3% on millionaires in Illinois and use that money for property tax relief? That's what the question is. And it's right there next to voting for president there in Cook County. And I think we'll get a good vote. We have to campaign for it. Early to bed, early to rise, work like hell and organize. I believe in that. And so that's what I do it. And it's very important to get out around the state and let people know what the issue is, what the facts are. But the facts are we have 70,323 millionaires in Illinois who bring in more than $1 million a year, and bless their hearts, we're happy for them. But right now, our state, its income tax rate on millionaires is lower than 25 other states in the country. They have higher rates on millionaires than we do. And so I think part of the property tax relief amendment is to bring up the tax rate on millionaires so we can have the money necessary to help everyday people. A lot of folks on modest incomes or pensions, they don't have a whole lot of money, extra money to pay property tax bills, especially when they get that surprise in the mail. Mm-hmm. So this is really tax reform, in my opinion. We have an upside-down tax code. There are plenty of breaks for the millionaires and too many bills for the everyday people who are the heart and soul of our state. And so we got to fight hard for important things like this. Referendums are really the best way for voters to kind of break the legislative gridlock and get real action. And we did that with Citizen Utility Board 40 years ago, and we want to do it this time around for the property tax relief amendment.
One of the things that you were working for before was this idea that there should be something on the ballot where people talk about whether or not they want any of their tax dollars to go for sports stadiums or new arenas. Where is that battle standing right now?
Stay tuned. There will be something this month that people will learn about. I went down there to City Hall during the winter time, and I said that, Brendan Johnson should follow the example of Kansas City. They had a referendum on whether or not taxpayer money should be used for building up a new stadium for the Kansas City Chiefs and also the Kansas City Royals. And the voters, they like the Chiefs. The Chiefs have won the Super Bowl 3 times in 5 years, and they had Patrick Mahomes telling people to vote for it. But the people voted no. No taxpayer subsidy for billionaires in their sports stadiums. And I wanted to get that wide ballot in Chicago. But Brandon wouldn't go along. Disappointed. But there will be an opportunity in some precincts for people to vote on this question. And I'll be talking about that in a week or two.
Oh, giving us a little bit of a preview of things to come?
Yes. Summer we were out gathering signatures on petitions. In Illinois, Chicago actually, there's a law that allows people to petition for a referendum on their precinct or a group of precincts. And this is, again, a way for the people's voice to be heard, not just by the insiders and the incumbents. They don't call all the shots. It's the voters who really matter, the taxpayers. So we did something along those lines, and I'll be talking about in a couple of weeks. And but by November 5th, people will know about not only the property tax relief amendment, but also the importance of giving taxpayers a chance to vote on whether or not the Bears get a taxpayer subsidy for building a new stadium. I really don't think that's necessary. We just built or rebuilt Soldier Field 21 years ago, and it's quite a stadium, as you know. It looks like a flying saucer, really. But why in the world would we ever knock that down? Building it in a couple decades ago, the Bears are just on the there, right? I'm a Bears fan. I was very happy we won Sunday, and we want to keep on winning. But the owners have to understand, if you want to see them, you got to pay for it out of your own money, not out of the taxpayers.
And the last time I checked, we still owed money on that new Bear Stadium, because when they were talking about, maybe moving to Arlington Heights, at that point in time, I think we still owed something like $600 million because of all the loans that had been taken out.
No doubt about it. I think it's $590 million is still owed from the rebuilding of Soldier Field back 20 years ago or so. There's about $50 million owed on the White Sox Stadium. But the notion that you don't even pay off the previous building of the Soldier Field or rebuilding of it before you want to build a new stadium, that's just for the birds. You know, we've got to say that. And at times, the lobbyists and the powerful people, they don't want to hear too much from the public at large. They don't really like referendums, to be honest. When I was down in Springfield as governor, I would bring up the subject of referendum, and I get very cold stares from my dad again. He was a fan of any kind of initiative or referendum, but hopefully that negativity is not going to prevail. We've got to make sure that we do let people have a chance to vote on issues as well as candidates. If we go to places like Michigan and Ohio, even Missouri, voting on issues, they're voting on rights for a constitutional amendment for reproductive freedom, raising the minimum wage, paid leave, sick leave for workers, all kinds of important things that matter to people who are raising families, working jobs, and they want a voice in their government, Well,
we will stay tuned for this next big announcement, and give me a heads up and have you come back and talk about it when you feel you are ready, okay?
I will do that, and
Excellent.
You're to the people, aggressive and progressive. Thank you.
Thank you. Former Illinois Governor Pat Quinn.